Hey guys, tonight we're going to talk about early stages of the Vietnam War, and it's going to be kind of detailed into how Vietnam was formed and what comes about that makes the United States become involved in it, sort of forces our hand. So just try to follow along, fill out your sheet, and watch it again if you need more clarification. All right, so let's start with our essential questions. After World War II, the U.S. made a decision that would impact our country forever regarding Vietnam. What was that decision? Who was the person the United States pretty much handpicked and put into place in Vietnam, South Vietnam? And what were his beliefs? And who inherits the Vietnam problem? All right, so I'm going to scroll up and you see here's the title, Early Stages of the War. You really have to know the background to understand any of it. All right, so how it all started. Basically, the French had colonized Vietnam. The British had lots of colonies. The French also had lots of colonies. And you know how the American colonies were treated by the British. The French were really no better. In fact, probably worse. So they misused and abused the nation of Vietnam for their benefit. It says many Vietnamese began to push back, wanting their independence. And basically you see this national movement sweep the country, wanting just to take their country back, basically. So it says here, for 30 years, one nationalist leader, Ho Chi Minh, is going to push for Vietnamese independence from France. And he's educated in Europe. He's a really interesting character. Educated in Europe, but later found comfort in communism. So keep that in mind. Ho Chi Minh, educated in Europe, so Western education, but communist leaning after he visits the Soviet Union. All right, I'm going to show you his picture first. All right, here he is. There's Ho Chi Minh. Okay, keep in mind that he is educated in Europe, but then leans communist once he visits the Soviet Union. All right, I've said that twice now, so you should have it. Okay, I also want to show you Vietnam. All right, so this is Asia, of course. Here's the South China Sea. Here's China. So the French are going to control all of this territory, all of it. And they called it French Indochina. All right, what we are discussing here is going to be a change that basically along the 17th parallel, which is marked here, after World War II, we're going to have a North Vietnam created and a South Vietnam created. So keep in mind, 17th parallel, North Vietnam, South Vietnam. Okay, we'll probably come back to that in a minute. Okay, so Ho Chi Minh is going to push for Vietnamese independence from France. And it says by the 1940s, Japan has also laid claim to parts of Vietnam. So Minh returns from Europe, organizes the Viet Minh, which was a group of nationalists who want to take their country back. This included communists and non-communists. They were just nationalists. They had national pride in their country. They wanted to control their own country. So they worked to get rid of the Japanese and the French, and we provide them with aid to do that. So that sounds very diplomatic on our part, to help them reclaim their country. Us, a country who was also once colonized. All right, so then when Japan surrenders in World War II, they leave Vietnam. The French are looking to us for support and money to keep their claim. So they're wanting back in, and in some cases in some parts they had stayed. Okay, so they hadn't been fully eradicated. So we're in a bad position here. Should we help the French, who, of course, were certainly our ally in World War II, to continue colonizing this area, or keep their control, gain back the control they lost, keep what they had kept? Or are we going to help the Viet Minh, even though because of Ho Chi Minh, they're growing more and more communist? So here's the answer. We choose, as it says here, to stop aid to the Viet Minh and instead support the French, our ally from World War II. So we're supporting colonialism. All right, so we've kind of flip-flopped. On May 7, 1954, a turning point in French control happened. The French decided to occupy the town of Dien Bien Phu to cut the Viet Minh's supply line. So the French are going to go on the offensive, try to take this town, which was a major area for basically shipment of goods for the Viet Minh. The Viet Minh surround the French, and the French lose. So we're on the side of the loser here. So of course the Viet Minh, Ho Chi Minh, are going to be quite upset at us. Once they defeat the French, they're going to definitely not want us around, okay, because we didn't sign with them. So it says the Geneva Accord in Geneva, Switzerland, decided that Vietnam would be divided along the 17th parallel. Ho Chi Minh and the Viet Minh, the communists, would control North Vietnam. Okay, remember, he's been to the Soviet Union and they support him. Pro-Western leaders are going to control South Vietnam. So you see it's going to kind of morph into more of a democracy. All right, a couple of things to show you with that. Here's an interesting Dien Bien Phu cartoon. And the ghost here symbolizes a French soldier. This is an American GI in Vietnam in the war, which we hadn't even gotten into yet in the notes. But Dien Bien Phu, since I just taught that to you, where the French go down against the Viet Minh, the GI here is saying, go away, I don't believe in ghosts, which is foreshadowing because we're telling the French, you know, leave us alone now once we're in Vietnam and we're fighting the war in Vietnam. We don't want to think about how the French lost to the Viet Minh. We don't think about that there's a good chance we're also going to be like the French. So it's foreshadowing. Here they are in a graveyard. It's just foreshadowing that the GI is going to end up just like the French do. Okay. I think that's good for now. So next thing I want to do is show you who we hand select. So we become the main protector of South Vietnam. And we put into place there a pro-Western, anti-communist, handpicked by us, leader. He's also a practicing Catholic. That becomes important later. And his name is Ngo Dinh Diem. Okay, now Diem is going to refuse permanent elections. He kind of gets the big head, and he decides he's going to take over everything and push this democracy on everyone. So he says no permanent elections because he was afraid, of course, Ho Chi Minh was going to win. He had all the support of the Viet Minh. Ho Chi Minh retaliates by beginning a series of struggles, and he's decided he's going to reunite Vietnam. And of course, remember, he's the communist, so he's going to reunite it under a communist regime. He organizes a new guerrilla army of South Vietnamese communists known as the Viet Cong. Very important. Here's your first introduction to the Viet Cong. Please remember, they're South Vietnamese. South Vietnamese. So they're in the South, the pro-Western democracy area. The reason why he can get any of these people to go along with him, A, they're natural-born Vietnamese people, and so is he. So they're going to trust him naturally over some pro-Western leader that we handpick. B, the other reason is because it says the Viet Cong becomes so popular because a lot of the Vietnamese just don't like Diem. They see him as true pro-Western, like a puppet of the United States, okay? Diem bans the practice of Buddhism. Remember, what religion is he? Catholic. So he's going to ban the practice of Buddhism, and in 1963 bans any celebration of Buddha's birthday. And then the Buddhists protest this, and he has them executed. Doesn't sound much like a democracy, does it? All right, so the Buddhist monks then, to protest this action, are going to do their own form of civil disobedience, but they're going to burn themselves alive in protest. And in fact, I have a picture of that. Monk burning. The most disturbing thing, I mean, this is the most disturbing thing, but the second most disturbing thing in this picture are all these people, a lot of them monks you see here in the background, watching this. And of course, no one is doing anything to stop it. I'm sure the monk had instructed that this was the plan all along, and he's just sitting here burning alive. So you see, this is going to garner a lot of sympathy within Vietnam for the people who are Buddhists, even those who aren't, are going to get upset at Diem because he's doing this. All right, and they're going to just kind of see him as the bully. All right, so Americans are horrified at these pictures of this Buddhist monk burning himself and others. He wasn't the only one. We take action. So in '63, we sent out our U.S. Ambassador, Henry Cabot Lodge, to Vietnam. And he's going to talk to several generals there in Vietnam. And basically it says they're all upset at Diem, and he finds out they want to kill him too. Oh, it's a nightmare. Okay, so Lodge is not, oh, I lost him. He's not successful here in trying to protect Diem, calm things down, because in fact the generals do execute Diem. Here's Henry Cabot Lodge. On the quiz tomorrow, you need to be able to tell me where else we've discussed him in American history. And hint, hint, it wasn't that long ago. So you need to find that out before tomorrow, okay? Here's Henry Cabot Lodge. Once again, he's not successful trying to do something. Okay, so that's that. And it says, the generals go ahead, they execute Diem. This uproar shows that basically the South is very unstable. And we're going to have to step it up to keep democracy alive there, because our guy Diem has been executed. So under Kennedy's presidency, he adopts Eisenhower's domino theory. If communist forces overthrew South Vietnam's government, the idea was, like dominoes, every other country in Asia would fall to communism. And I have a picture of that also. Excellent depiction of the Viet Cong here, South Vietnamese, trying to push Vietnam into communism, and the American GI trying to hold up these other countries from falling into the same fate. So please remember Eisenhower domino theory. To help you remember that, I also have a picture of Diem. He's dead now at this point, but shaking hands with President Eisenhower. So this shows Eisenhower's kind of plan in putting Diem in place as a pro-Western, anti-communist person to prevent that fall of South Vietnam. Of course, that doesn't happen because Diem's executed. Okay, then it says that Kennedy continues U.S. military aid to South Vietnam, sends military advisors in to help the South Vietnamese army. So we have not gone in with our army yet, but we're sending military advisors, which basically means we're sending people over there to tell everybody what to do, okay? Which I'm sure that went over really well. By '63, now we've got more than 16,000 U.S. troops there, just in a supporting role, okay? Not there actually in a hot war fighting. 3 weeks after Diem's death, President Kennedy is assassinated. So that's kind of left hanging. Now this problem belongs to Lyndon Baines Johnson. Okay, a couple things I want to show you. Excellent movie, We Were Soldiers, Mel Gibson's in it, about the Vietnam War. True story about Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore. You should see it if you get a chance, okay? Really good. When I was little, growing up, my dad would watch a TV show. It was called Tour of Duty. And it would come on every week, and it was the Vietnam War, and it was about the guys fighting in the Vietnam War, which is one reason why I fell in love with war and history. Okay, one other thing I want to show you. Quick video about LBJ having to deal with all these problems. It's going to kill his great society, which really ticks him off. Having to deal with Vietnam messes it all up for him. Okay, it's really, honestly, it's a really big problem.
About how evil America was. We wanted to go back to a time when America seemed to be doing the right thing in the world.
I think that Lyndon Johnson was stunned by the reaction on college campuses and city streets of a new left, of a youthful, radical protest movement. He had thought that young, reform-oriented people were going to be his greatest allies. So I think that he understood that the war undercut his plans for a war on poverty and the Great Society.
So it killed his plans for war on poverty and Great Society. Is really going to mess him up. All right? Okay, I've run out of time. See you tomorrow.